a series that I'm super familiar with. I mean, on the PlayStation, the only games I've really completed all the way through are the Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Biohazard, and Resident Evil Village. All were amazing games. I really love those games, especially 4. And when I heard that Netflix had a Resident Evil movie on it called Death Island, I had to check it out, and I have to say, it is probably one of the best movies I have seen that Sony has done. So, I'm going to be giving a quick review of it, so let's get right to it, guys. So, the beginning of this movie starts off with these Umbrella Corporation soldiers. They're in the back of this truck, and you got these 2 soldiers that are just talking. They're like, "So, what do you think Umbrella called us in for? What's going on here?" And the other's like, "Must be pretty important because we were off duty and they called us in." And then we find out that this is like at the very beginning of Resident Evil Primetime. Like, this is the very beginning of the T-Virus outbreak, and the general's like, "So, we're almost to Raccoon City. Once we get there, help the CEOs and workers of Umbrella out of this city. But the civilians, forget them. They're screwed." And one of the soldiers is like, "So, what if the civilians try to get past us?" And the general just goes, you're clear to shoot to kill." And at this point, you're like, "Oh, damn, we're only like a minute into the movie and this is already talking about getting very dark." But anyway, we do get to Raccoon City and the evac scene. We get scenes of them actually really shooting the civilians and keeping them away as Umbrella Corporation evacuates. It's really cool. Like, the CG is beautiful in this. The camera work's amazing. So far, I'm really impressed with it. So, we are past the vaccine, yet we got like 20 plus soldiers in this meat room basically, and we got this one soldier who's bandaging them up. After he finishes that, he meets up with his friend in like this safe room basically, and he gets on the radio and he's like, "Evac's been done, job's complete, but we got like 20 injured here. We need to get out of this place as soon as possible. Do you copy?" And over the radio, we get the response saying, "Negative. Anyone that's been hurt needs to be terminated as soon as possible." So, you got these 2 soldiers that end up fighting over this one gun. Slowly, the injured soldiers, they start turning into zombies. And then you get this scene like the turned soldiers are pounding on this glass to get into the room where these 2 soldiers are fighting over the gun. And eventually one of the soldiers knocks the other one down onto the ground, and then he starts shooting at all the zombies. Meanwhile, the soldier that was on the ground, he's just staying on the ground, he's covering his ears and just yelling like, "Stop it! Stop it!" And then we get the title card of this movie. It is amazing how dark it is at the beginning, and I loved it. So, we got Leon, the movie's like in present time now, we got Leon in San Francisco, and he's talking to Leon about this mission that he's been given. Apparently, like, there's this doctor that's like super into like mechanics and robotics and things like that, and he's been kidnapped, and Leon's job is to get him back. And it starts out normal, like he sees this truck that he's supposed to go after, so he's on the freeway on his motorcycle, he gets out his gun, and he's about to blow out the tire, and that's when another motorcyclist rams into him, and it turns into like this whole high freeway battle. It is awesome! I mean, there's this one scene where they chase each other into this tunnel on the freeway, and the other motorcyclist, she like unlatches the thing on a truck carrier, and so these like two cars come falling off of the freight thing, and Leon's just like, oh shit. And he just avoids them, swerving in and out of traffic, avoiding the cars. It's a really cool scene. And then he gets behind this other motorcyclist that's attacking him, and he blows out one of the tires, and the motorcyclist ends up jumping onto Leon, and they're struggling for a bit, and Leon like drives to a little bit to the side, and he's just gonna ram the other motorcyclist like into this back of the semi. But this motorcyclist, she runs onto the side of the freight truck, and she, with her high heel, she hits the brake on Leon's motorcycle, so they both go flying, and Leon ends up wiping out, and he pulls out his other gun, and he's looking around for this motorcyclist, and when he notices that whoever that other motorcyclist was, they're gone now, he's just like, I love that bike. I love it because it's like, that's where the scene ends. It ends with him just stranded on in the middle of the freeway. And we don't see him for a long time after that. Each character in this movie had such a cool introduction to it. I mean, we got Leon with the awesome motorcycle freeway fight, and now we have Claire Redfield, like, she goes to the beach, and there's been a call about orca whale beached, so she goes to investigate it, and when she's talking to the man about what she does, she's like taking measurements of the bite and everything, and she's like, there's nothing in the world that has a bite radius that can make a bite like this. We have no idea what caused this. And her scene just ends with them looking into the ocean like, oh, whatever this is, it's gonna be big. The movie's gonna lead up to something big out there. Next, we get to see a character that we have not seen in a long time. Jill Valentine. We have Jill, she's like exploring this empty dark house, and on a radio we hear that she's inside of a house that has a bioweapon in it, and Jill's just like, she's not evacuating it, she's gonna check this out, and then she just turns her radio off, and it's cool because like, as she's checking the upstairs, she's checking the downstairs, and she's like turning her flashlight on and off as she's going from room to room. And eventually she opens this one door to this one room and turns on her flashlight, and there's blood splatters on the wall. And this is when she's like being super cautious and sneaky about it. And then she sees there's this body on the floor. She turns it over, and you think there's gonna be like a major jump scare at this point. Like, the body is like playing dead, it's gonna try to bite her, whatever. But no, it's just a normal dead body. And then Jill is attacked by a zombie. They like roll around on the floor for a while. Jill's like trying to avoid being bitten. And at one point, she pushes herself off of the wall, and the zombie's still on her, and they fall from like the second floor of the house onto this glass table, and Jill just shoots the zombie like 3 times in the head, killing it. And that's when like Chris and the others come in, and we get a reunion between Chris and Jill. It was an epic way to introduce 2 characters into the story. It was really cool. So, a little later into this movie, we're back at HQ, and we got this like heartwarming scene between Jill and Chris, and apparently like Jill was brainwashed by Whisker, a villain like earlier in the Resident Evil games, and she tried to kill like Chris and Leon and everyone, and Chris just says, no one blames you for this. And then Chris tells this story how he used to have a partner that he believed that if he died, he would have his partner take over the team for him. but his partner ended up dying, and Chris just says, what you did at that bioweapon house, it may have been necessary, but we've been doing this job so long, we just throw caution to the wind, and we need to stay alive. And Jill's only response is that this is such a shitty job, she can't afford to be worried about staying alive. And then she goes back to shooting at the gun range that they're at, and it's crazy, because, like, you can tell that this movie is gonna be, like, an inner conflict with Jill. Like, she feels sorry for what she did, and she's trying to make amends with everyone, while trying to tell her that she's doing the right thing by wiping out all these bioweapons. It's really cool. She has a really cool part in this movie. Jill is one of the coolest characters in this. So, we are at the 20-minute mark of the movie, and we are just barely introduced to the villain of the movie. We open up with this man at this computer screen, like the room is filled with like codes and stuff, and then this other man walks in using a cane, and he's like, well, Doctor, we are so glad that you actually decided to work with us. And he pulls out this gun and he like empties all the bullets except for one. And they play Russian roulette first on the doctor, and then when the doctor survives, he's like, life has decided to give you another chance, Doctor. And then he pulls the gun on himself and does the cartridge spin, and then he's like, life is all up to fate. And he pulls the trigger and nothing happens. So, like, as an audience, we're kind of given, like, this is a guy that just believes, like, in destiny, kind of fate thing. Yet, we're kind of interested in to see what his whole motive is. Like, from just his attitude, we're drawn into this character. It's pretty cool. So, the next scene, we're back at HQ, and Rebecca has gotten Chris, Jill, and Claire. They've all come to her research lab, and she says that she's been doing research on the orca. And it turns out that the bite that was found on the orca, it was something else that was found on it, was some T-virus. And everyone's just like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And then she says, that's not all. There's a whole new outbreak that's happening. It's not airborne, it's not saliva-borne, but she does pull up the screen because she did find something in common in all these people that are turning. And it turns out that everyone who had been turned, they had recently visited Alcatraz Island. So you got Chris, who's like, alright guys, I think we all know where this is going. And we get the next scene of them on a trip to Alcatraz Island, where Chris is talking to Rebecca, saying, if anything unusual happens, contact us. We'll do the same, we'll contact you. And we know that this is starting to start the climax. The interesting part of the movie is gonna go 10 times further. So, Chris, Claire, and Jill, they're all walking around Alcatraz Island looking in the cells, and Claire's like, yeah, Chris, I don't see anything weird about this, it just seems like a normal prison. And you got these other tourists, like some are YouTubers, others are just like walking around, and Chris is just like, keep your guard up. Whatever made these people change has got to be around here. And while this is happening, we get our villain. He's like, he finally sees that Chris and the others have come to Alcatraz Island. And he tells the story about the torture device, the Bronson Bowl. How, like, the person was put in the bowl and cooked inside. And then he's like, so, I think it's time we put our plan into motion. And then, out of nowhere, one of the YouTubers, like, he is just doing his thing, and then you hear a scream, and there's this one person that's being attacked by a zombie. Chris runs out, and he shoots the guy that became the zombie, and then the YouTuber's like, oh my gosh, that guy just shot another guy, did you see that? And then you hear a scream, and the YouTuber turns into a zombie, and it just turns into this whole outbreak of zombie virus. It's crazy. This outbreak has to be like one of the most entertaining outbreaks. I mean, you got zombies in this that are actually clever. Like, they avoid gunfire in this. They're jumping off the walls. Like Chris and Claire, they're climbing up these bars to shoot at the zombies while protecting the civilians. Yet a lot are still being bitten and being turned. I mean, there's this one point where Claire, like, she gets a bunch of these tourists, and they make like a barricade against these zombies, and this one lady screams, and Claire turns around, and she's like, no way. Because this lady tourist, she turns into this zombie. So, like, you got these zombies that are climbing the cage to get over the barricade that Claire made. And then you got that zombie inside the barricade that starts attacking them. So Claire is shooting, and there's like blood splattering all over. It's insane. Also, we got this awesome scene with Jill. Like, there's this officer that's shooting at these zombies, and part of the area where he's at collapses. So, Jill goes down into the sewers where they fell into to help him, and she, like, shoots up all the zombies, and she asks the officer if he's okay. And the officer doesn't respond for a second, like, he's covering his face, just like, kind of scared-wise, and when he puts his hands down, it's terrifying. Like, he's so pale, and he's bleeding from his eyes, and he attacks Jill. She shoots, but guns out of ammo, so she does a couple, like, ninja moves, and she gets a knife, and she ends up throwing it in the back of the officer's head to kill him. It is epic. One of the coolest zombie fights ever. Really fun to watch. So, eventually, Chris and Claire have shot up all the zombies. They're taking care of the tourists that remain. And then it's just two of them that are in the room. And they're saying, like, we need to make sure that Jill is alright. Try to find her as soon as we can. And then we get this case that moves. And then they open the drawer as fast as they can. And then you have this man in the drawer. He's just like, don't shoot, don't shoot. And Chris and Claire, they don't say anything. They just kind of look relieved to see another person. So at this point, we have Jill going through the sewers. She's working her way back up to the surface of Alcatraz, but she's still being cautious. There may be zombies around the corner, who knows? And then she turns around the corner and she gets into a knife fight with this unknown person. And it turns out to be Leon. Leon is finally back in the movie. And Jill's like, they have knives at each other's throats, and Jill's just like, Leon? And Leon's just like, well, I'll be damned. Jill Valentine. And then they hear a squeal, and they turn around, and there's zombies underground. And so they start shooting at these zombies for a little bit, and then one of them gets sucked into the water by something, and half of it gets spat out, where the creature that ate the zombie jumps out of the water, and it turns out to be a licker. And lickers are, damn, they're terrifying, dude. Like, there's these blind creatures, and it walks past Leon, and then it slowly turns around, and it's probably one of the most, like, unnerving scenes any movie-based, game-based movie thing is done with CG. I mean, lickers look around with their tongues, feel vibrations and stuff, and this licker is moving its tongue around Jill. Like, it's slowly moving its tongue up over her legs, and then this canister falls over, and before it hits the ground, Jill, like, catches it, but this little clip falls onto the cement. And you can just see Jill's face. She's just like, oh shit. And before anything can happen, though, Leon kills the licker. But that's when hundreds of others jump out of the water and over the walls. So, like, Leon and Jill are running through the sewers, avoiding the attack of the lickers. And it's awesome, because, like, one of the licker's tongues wraps around Jill's leg and starts pulling her back towards it. And Leon starts shooting it, and he jumps towards Jill and grabs her arm and pulls her back. And they run back. They're just running through the tunnel. And Jill's like, how many of these things are here? And Leon's like, the hell if I know? And there's one point where they go around the corner and Leon just pushes Jill out of the way. And he throws a canister down the hallway and he shoots it. It blows up and Leon's just like, total zero. And Jill's like, what are you talking about? And Leon just gives that smart-ass, awesome Leon Kennedy remark. You wanted to know how many there were. It's an amazing scene. One of the best scenes of the movie. So, after this whole zombie shooting, liquor running away from all this evil stuff going on, we get a break from it where we go back to headquarters with Rebecca. Now, I don't mind Rebecca. She's cool. Like, in Vendetta, she was cool. She had a cool part. But, honestly, I prefer Hannigan. Which, luckily, we get her just talking to Claire over the phone. But, at least we get her. Anyway, she tells Rebecca that while she was working with Leon, she works with Leon still, but she recently discovered that somebody has stolen records about Raccoon City, as well as information on Jill, Claire, Leon, and Chris. And the look on Rebecca's face is just like, what? Who'd do that? And it's just to keep the audience in suspense about this villain, which is supposed to be this major drama reveal of who it's gonna be. And later on in the movie, it does a great reveal of who it actually is. But it's a fun moment to learn all this info has been stolen. So, while we're back at Alcatraz, Jill and Leon are still working their way up to the surface from the sewers, and they find this secret tunnel. That when they go through, they find this ancient shipping dock that they go inside, and it turns out to be the doctor's research and villain's lab. And in this lab, they learn all about the biodrones and what the plan is, how the virus is starting to spread, things like that. And Leon's like, the doctor I was hunting. This is his specialty. He must be here. And then, what I love about it is that the camera keeps us in the audience in suspense the entire time. Like, you think, like, it's at a distance as it pans across Jill and Leon as they're looking at all these glass boards with writing on it and stuff. So you think, like, the villain is in the room and he's gonna pop up. Just because the camera moves and pans slowly across the screen, which is pretty cool. And then we hear the voice of this villain. He's like, well, well, well. If it isn't Jill Valentine and Leon S. Kennedy. And Leon, he's like, well, well, well. If it isn't whoever the hell you are. And the villain says, if you want to see Chris and Claire again, come to the surface, and then you're finally gonna see me. And I love it. Just the camera work, the suspense of it. It was an awesome shot. Really cool. So this is when Leon and Jill finally get to the surface. We see that Chris and Claire, they've been infected with the virus and they're slowly turning. And then we finally get the villain reveal of this movie. He's like, welcome my friends to Alcatraz. And it actually turns out to be the soldier at the beginning of the movie. It turns out to be him. Like, we get this flashback of when him and his friend were arguing about whether to kill the other people that had been infected or not. It turns out that because of his limp, they had been fighting over the gun, and his friend had actually been bitten while protecting both of them, so they're fighting over the gun, and the trigger had been pulled, and he had been shot in the leg multiple times. So that's why he got his limp. He had just been shot in the leg. And we also learned that he feels so guilty about what he's done to his friend. Like, he said that they still need evac, even though his friend's hurt. And he gets the same message that the order was to kill everyone who's been infected. And so they have another fight, and he's about to shoot his friend, but he's out of bullets. So instead, he just bludgeons his friend to death with a briefcase. Like, it doesn't show it. It kind of would have been cool if we, like, very gory if it had shown it. But we get, like, a first-person view of him just bludgeoning his friend to death. Kind of like just smashing a case until, like, his head is completely smashed. And that's why he bangs his cane throughout the movie in like a rhythm. Just because like he has PTSD of that moment. Anyway, what we learn of his backstory is really cool. Leon sees that the doctor that he was looking for, his whole mission is in the cell. And Dylan's like, the good old doctor here definitely was helpful in me making these drones to spread this virus. And he believes that there can be no good in this world, that he's gonna wipe the slate clean, start all over. And Leon just says that he's psychotic. And Dylan's just like, no, Leon, I worked for the big dogs. I worked for the people you are working for right now. There is no good in this world. Besides, with these drones, I get to control who is going to be infected. And what's cool is that with the camera work in this, we get like a view of what the drones see. Like, it's in yellow and black. So, and along with Chris and Claire, we get Leon that gets infected, and Dylan decides to leave Jill alone so she can see her friends die. And then we learn that Dylan had been working with Arius, the villain of Vendetta, to make bioweapons. And that's when we are seeing that Maria is there as well, who was the daughter of a man that worked with Arius in Resident Evil Vendetta. So we get this collection of all these heroes and villains in this one scene, which is really cool to see. We then get a scene where we get to see the doctor that's made these biodrones for Dylan. Dylan shoots him, and Dylan is just like, sorry, doctor, it seems that your use for this project has run its course. And then he turns to Maria and just says, like, watch over them. And then Dylan starts to leave. And she goes after Leon. And then Dylan's just like, don't worry about him. The virus will do its stuff. And before Jill can shoot Dylan, Maria grabs Jill and starts, like, strangling her. And then, Leon launches this flash grenade, Jill escapes, and Dylan's just like, let her go. It doesn't matter what she does anyway. The others are good as dead that have been infected. And once our biodrones hatch, it's the end. There's nothing anyone can do. It's like supposed to be this super intense moment, which the movie really does well. It's like you got Chris, Claire, and Leon, they've all been infected. They're all gonna turn soon. You got the doctor who's been shot, he's dying, there's nothing he can do. And you got Jill, like, the bioweapons are gonna hatch soon. It seems like they're actually gonna lose this one. It's actually working its way to be pretty intense. So, we get the scene where Jill is just running through the sewers again, just getting as far away and trying to catch Dylan as she can. And then she runs into Rebecca, where she got to the island and a lot of people died. There's this whole shark attack scene. But Rebecca did get to the island with a cure. And while all that is going on, as Jill's making her way back up to the surface, we get this scene where Claire is trying to take care of the doctor, and the doctor, he's just like given up at this point. He knows he's dying, and he's like, why don't the rest of you give up? You heard him. The world is going to be destroyed. And Leon's just like, that asshole made his choice, and we made ours. And the doctor's just like, but we're all dying. How can you be so calm? And Chris is just like, the world's messed up. There's hundreds of people out there that's like Dylan that are going to try to destroy it. And it's people like us doing the hard thing that's trying to save it. And the doctor's just like, and you believe there's a hope out there? And both Chris and Leon just say, yeah, we believe that Jill is out there and she is going to help everyone. And that's awesome. Like, it's a really, like, motivational moment. Like, the movie itself is trying to say in the darkest moment, there's always a person out there that can be the light of hope. It's sad but good, and it can really hit you in the feels if you're the right person. It's a really good emotional scene. So, the doctor has a change of heart now. Like, with the speech that Chris and Leon gave about Jill being hope out there, and him seeing that Claire is trying to take care of him, even though he's basically been an asshole to her, he's just like, all my life, there's no one that's mattered to me. I've only cared about myself. But maybe if I met you three, I could have changed. And then he reaches into his pocket and he's like, I made a backdoor to my lab in case they screwed me over. Which they did. And he gives Jill, like, the code to get into his lab and says that good luck trying to stop Dylan. And then he dies. It's a major change of character. Like, you don't know the doctor that well, but from all his lines and stuff, he does seem like an asshole. Then with a change of heart, he's like, oh, maybe he really could have been a good guy. It's awesome. Anyway, eventually Rebecca makes her way up to the surface, and she says she has the cure, and Jill is going after Dylan, and right away she gives the cure to Leon, and Leon's like, alright, let's move out, and he gets up, and that's where it is right now. You get this scene with Jill and Dylan, and Jill's just like, it's over, Dylan! And Dylan's like standing on this platform in the middle of the water, and he's just like, it doesn't matter. The plan's over, this is going to work. It is our time to make our own decisions, to create a world of our own. And with this, I can atone for my sins. And he shoots himself in the head with a T-virus. And he falls into the water and merges with a bioweapon shark that was the one that bit the orca that killed off Rebecca's team when she was getting to Alcatraz to give them the cure. And we know that Dylan's gonna be the big, massive zombie creature that every Resident Evil game has near the end of every game. But before that, we get an awesome Leon versus Maria fight. The Leon versus Maria fight is awesome! I mean, you got Leon, he's in the doctor's laboratory, and he's like, why is Dylan letting in all the water? And then Maria shows up, and she's like, I'm glad the virus didn't kill you. I wanted the chance to kill you myself. And Leon's just like, bitch, you don't always get what you want. And their fight is just one-sided, like, for 90% of the time. I mean, Maria is like this, robotic, ninja thing. Like, I get Terminator 3 fight vibes from it. You know when Schwarzenegger fights the female Terminator? I get vibes from that. Like Leon, he's just recovered from the T-virus. He's probably at like 50% health. And you got Maria, who's just kicking his ass. I mean, she's literally throwing him all over the place, beating him up. And there's one point where, Leon's just had enough of this. He gets kicked into a glass board, and Maria's like, "You're going to pay for killing my father." And Leon's just like, "Yeah, well, your dad was kind of a dick." And they run at each other, they do fights, like Maria does this flip, she punches Leon some more times, finally Leon gets in a couple hits, and then that's when he's had enough of this shit. You can tell he's going full Leon as Kennedy mode, and he starts beating her up, and he kicks her into a broken pipe that has a spike, and the scene we get is pretty gruesome. Like, Maria just looked in shock in what happened, and slowly she pulls herself off of the pipe and just falls down dead finally. And Leon's just like, now you can be with your dad. So at this point, we got everyone meeting up again. They're all glad that they're all safe. And then that's when Dylan shows his form. And he's like this massive zombie shark creature elephant thing. I don't know. He's huge. We'll just say he's huge. And Leon's just like, what the hell is that? And Jill's just like, Dylan formed with the bioweapon. And so you got this amazing fight thing of all these 4 characters. Well, 5 with Rebecca, because she's fighting with Leon, Jill, Chris, Claire. And so you got like grenade launchers going on, you got bazookas shooting, you got machine guns, you got all this gunfire. And then at one point Leon's like, Claire, do you still have the code to the professor's lab? And Claire's just like, yes, I do. And then Leon says, we need to find a way to hijack those biodrones before they can get out into the world. Go see if you can do that. And so Clara and Rebecca run off to do that. You got the scene where Leon and Chris, like Leon's driving this Jeep around Dylan while Chris is shooting this machine gun. And I love that Leon's like, definitely going on vacation after this. It's great. I love it. Like all classic Resident Evil games, they're getting their asses kicked, and they get the main villain down to half health, and that is when Jill finds the weapon that's like in every game destroys the main boss. So Jill finds a plasma rifle, and she's like, Leon, Chris, get Dylan closer. So Chris and Leon continue to ride through the Jeep. Chris continues to shoot at it while Leon drives around Dylan. And eventually Jill gets the plasma rifle loaded to 100%. She shoots Dylan. And at this point, Dylan's definitely hurt. I'd say he's down to like 20% health, but he's not dead. This whole time, Claire and Rebecca are working on controlling the biodrones. They finally do hijack them, but instead of shooting and shutting them down, Rebecca's like, why don't we use them? And then we get back to the fighting with Claire, Leon, and with Jill, Chris, and Leon. And Jill is waiting for the plasma rifle to still heat up. And they're all like at this one corner, and before Dylan can kill them, he stops and turns around. And they're like, what the hell is going on? And we learn that they hijacked the biodrone, so they're attacking Dylan instead. So Dylan's trying to escape now into the water. They end up closing the gate, but Jill, she runs in front of Dylan, and she's like, "You would rather destroy the whole world because you feel guilty for killing your friend? Deal with it, you bastard." And she dives into the water after Dylan, and she blows up a couple bombs, and the gate shuts on Dylan, and finally Dylan is killed. Alright, mission's complete. The T-virus drones are taken care of. Dylan is dead. They're all on top of Alcatraz Island waiting for a ride-off from some helicopters. And this is when Jill says that she's gonna rejoin the team. And typical Resident Evil, it ends with them walking to the helicopters in the sunset. And we get an aerial view of Alcatraz Island. And that's when the end title card Resident Evil Death Island shows up. But it is amazing. Now that Jill's with the team again, we're gonna probably get another movie with her. I love Jill in this. Like, the whole movie was about her getting redemption. But, like, others forgiving her, but getting redemption for herself. She basically gives herself a pep talk at the end. She feels guilty being brain controlled and trying to kill people. And like she said to Dylan, she just has to learn to deal with it. That was awesome. I love this movie. I give it a 10 out of 10. Alright guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen a Resident Evil Death Island, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. I know I personally loved it. I loved, like, the camera work in it, the CGI in it. All of it was amazing. Anyway guys, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And yeah, hope you guys liked the video. We'll see you next time. Take care.